Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're listening from, on your favorite podcast platform. I am Dr. Canute White, and you're watching slash listening to Canute's Exploration, your topic in a podcast. You know, politics is a good thing. Many places around the world, people consider politics as being corrupt, not good, don't want their children to get involved. But I am a believer in the political process wherever in the world, and I believe that democracy is good as it relates to politics. And politics is not only partisan politics, but it also involves politics within organization. Because politics is a part of our life, just like psychology is a part of our lives. And we are going to be talking to somebody who dabbles in politics, involved in politics in a very significant way, and is no other than Chris Russell. Chris, let's talk. Right, I'm going to ask first of all, and welcome to Canute Exploration. Let me say that.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Right, this is February 8th, 2022, and indeed I celebrate my birthday today. Right.
Oh, happy birthday.
Right, I'm happy about that. I'm growing, right? But let me ask you, who is Chris Russell? Let me start there with you.
Well, I'm a patriot first. I'm a believer first. So when I say a believer, I'm a
Mhm.
man of faith, a man
Okay.
of God,
Yeah.
and I'm somebody that loves democracy and loves freedom. And
Mhm.
somebody that loves the political process. And I didn't always used to love the political process,
Right.
but I've learned over the years it's so very important for us as people, no matter where you are. It doesn't matter what country you're in,
Hmm.
what
Hmm.
state you're in, whether you're in the United States or you're in another country. It's important for us to be involved and talk about the issues, because if you don't, somebody else will. And it might
Yeah.
not be the views or opinions, and it might not be the people that you want to be in power. So
Yeah.
it's very important that we have these discussions and have these kinds of conversations.
Oh, cool. I love that. And we're reaching out to you from, I'm reaching out to you from Miramar in Florida. And you realize I'm Jamaican. I hope you're okay with the accent, right? But that's all right.
I
That's
did
all
get that, yes.
right. Chris, I'm going to be asking you this question. It's always, perhaps as a challenge for some of my guests,
Sure.
something that they really don't expect. But tell me about your childhood.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up pretty poor. I grew up with a single mom. I grew up, we moved from place to place. My mom was one of those moms who was a single mom, just trying to do the best that she could. We've lived in shelters, we've lived
Okay.
homeless, we have
Mhm.
lived, a pretty rough life.
Yeah.
I would have to say my dad left pretty early on out of the picture, so I didn't grow up with a dad. And
Mhm.
this type of childhood actually I started to see in my childhood, and as I grew up, you know what, a man has to make a way for himself. A
Yeah.
man has to be strong. A man has to have good family moral values, good family values, good political values. And as I grew up, I began to say, you know what? If I don't do it, nobody else will for me, because the world doesn't meet anybody all the way. You
Yeah.
only get halfway, and you've got to go the other way. You've got to go the distance in your own
Mhm.
life. And so that's a little bit about my childhood, a little bit about who
Yeah.
I
Cool.
am in my past.
I love that. But Chris, I also came from a matrifocal single parent arrangement. And
Mhm.
for us men who grew up in that sort of situation, do you think that, well, for me, I'm staying. But do you think that men like us who grew up in that sort of arrangement, it will propel us to stay because we saw what our dads did?
I think you have two options in that type of arrangement. I think either you let your situation and your circumstances keep you down, or you get the mentality to rise above your circumstance and your situation. And I
Hmm.
think those pretty much are the only two possibilities that people have. And I think what happens to a lot of people is when they get in those situations, when they get in that, they get a mindset that they can't get out of it, but they
Hmm.
can. They have to believe in themselves. They have to believe that they can do more. They can rise above.
Yeah.
And I think when they get that mindset, I think then they can rise above. And I think when they get the mindset that they can't, well, it's like that old maxim, be it unto you as you will. If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't.
I love that. I love that. And indeed, we who were brought up in single parent matrifocal arrangement, we have done well for ourselves. So it's possible that we can make it. Tell me, why politics? Why did you get involved in politics?
Well, I got involved in politics and I started the company that I started because I started looking around and I started seeing that one. I would see people, they'd say, you know what, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be involved. I'm not gonna vote, and
Yeah,
then they would complain about, well, this politician got in office. Well, you didn't vote. Well, yeah, I
yeah,
think all
yeah,
politicians
yeah.
are crooked, or I think all politicians are bad. Well, not all
Mm,
politicians are bad. There's bad ones, there's good ones. You know,
yeah,
then they would say, "Well, I'm just going to completely negate the democratic process." Well,
yeah,
this process is one of the best processes in to ensure that we get good people in office. You
yeah.
have the power to enact change, and not every country has that power. Some countries, obviously,
Mhm.
they're stuck with who they have because maybe they have a dictator, maybe they have
Yeah,
a regime in power that force their way into power. But here in the US and in other places, the UK, Australia, and some other places, they have that democratic process. We have that democratic process. And then the second reason is I got involved in news, and
okay.
particularly news
Mhm.
and politics, because I looked around and I said, you know what? A lot of people, you can't trust the news media nowadays. You can't
Yeah,
trust, okay, you've got one that leans this way, one that leans this way. Well, which one do
yeah,
you trust? And so, we went the route and said, you know what, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. I used to tell my family, said, somebody needs to do something. Somebody
yeah.
has to do something. And then I started going, I am somebody. I am somebody.
Right.
I
Yeah,
can do something.
I
And
love that.
so that's why I got involved, is because I love this country and I
Mhm.
love every country. I believe that every country should have freedom and democracy. And I stand with those people in any country that stands up and says, no
Yeah,
more. We want freedom. We want democracy. We want the democratic process. We
yeah.
stand with those people because it's not about the US, although I love this country.
Right.
It's about every country. We
Yeah,
we hear about the Canadian truckers, they're doing their convoy for freedom. We hear
yeah,
about the people in France that are marching for freedom. It's not about this per se, but it's about all of us together
yeah.
as a people.
Universal democracy. It's
Yes.
it's critical. And
Yep.
are you in representational politics, or have you been at any point? What's with that?
What's that?
Are you in representational politics? Or to what extent are you involved in politics?
Well, I'm involved in, as far as my company, the Daily Brief, the news company.
Right.
We interview, we follow politics. I've had the privilege of being able to, with our company, interview and talk with
Hmm.
several congressional candidates and be on their radar, their mailing list. And as far as, I was just talking to the candidate, which is running for Maryland's 6th congressional district, actually today,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
he was asking me, hey, Chris, can you get out that we're going to have a Holocaust survivor in Maryland. We're going to have the importance of making sure that democracy stays in our
Yeah.
state and in our country, and not revoking any kind of freedom, any kind of constitutional freedom. So over the past 2 years, been very involved in this as the company has been getting up and going and been, going forward.
Right.
And so very involved in reaching out and talking with our, our representatives, our congressional candidates, and, on both sides of the aisle. We want both of
Yeah.
them
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
talk to us and be a part of the democratic process.
Right. Important. So it's not a partisan thing. It's really, you know, hearing the voices of these representative or potential representatives, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Critical. Critical.
Absolutely.
Chris, this thing about involvement in politics, you heard me earlier on saying that many persons don't want to get involved. But why would you encourage, say me, anyone who are capable to get involved in the political process in terms of representational politics?
Oh yeah, I would encourage anyone to either get involved to vote or get involved and get in on a campaign.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying get in on a Republican or a Democrat or a Green
Okay.
Party campaign. Get
Yeah.
involved, whatever your values
Yeah.
are. Get involved in a campaign. And three, if you feel so strongly about politics, think about running, because the only one that's going to make sure that your values, your political representation is represented is you. And so if you're not involved, if you don't get involved, well, the things that you maybe want to get done won't get done. And I
Yeah.
realize that as I get older,
Yeah.
more and more, I realize that it's so important for people to get involved. And I've said it so many times that, listen, it's about the democratic process. Maybe the
Yeah.
Democrats win one time, maybe the Republicans win one time,
Yeah.
maybe a Green Party candidate wins one time,
Hmm.
but it's about the political process. It's not necessarily about a party, although we all have our own parties that we ascribe
Yeah.
to,
Hmm.
but it's about getting out and making a difference wherever you are at. And I truly believe that. I believe it with all of my heart.
Yes. Yeah. You're listening to Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. I am Dr. Canute White. We're talking to Chris Rosser. We'll be talking more about his company, that he has, that is involved in politics. But Chris, I'd like to, we celebrate around the world Black History Month. I just like to get your views on the concept of Black history. How do you see that? What's your meaning of Black history?
Well, I think that here in the US, or just in general?
In general, in general.
In general, I think, well, when I think about Black history, I think about all of the great things that have been done, especially in this country. I think
Yeah,
about Martin Luther King. I think about Frederick Douglass. I think about some of these abolitionists. I think about a lot of great people when I think about Black history. I also think about some of the tragedies that have happened,
oh
especially here in
yeah.
the US, which
Mhm.
is very unfortunate. And I'm glad that we've moved away from that.
Yeah,
I'm glad that we've moved to a place where we can honor and lift up our fellow patriots and our
yeah,
fellow brothers in our nation. If you're a Christian, which I'm a Christian in the
yeah,
Lord, or just fellow human beings. And so when I think of Black history, I think a lot of great things. I also think of some sad things, but
yeah,
I think of a
yeah.
mixed history. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, we've had a checkered past here in the US. There's
Yeah,
no denying that. But I'm glad that the concept of the Constitution of the United States has left
yeah.
us
Mhm.
with the ability to change, and we have changed. Maybe we're not exactly where we should be, but we're not where we used to be. And I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, yeah. That's good, Chris. You alluded to freedom,
Mhm.
earlier on, but your views of freedom then it suggested that hey, it's possible. But do you think that freedom and liberty really achievable? Do you think so?
Oh
And
yeah,
why?
I don't think it's just achievable. I think we're living in an age of freedom and liberty where people well, this past year has kind of challenged us in some ways, but
Yeah, yeah,
but
right.
by and large, people are free to do what they want and they have the liberty to do what they want within the confines of obviously the law. I
Hmm.
mean, you can't just run up to somebody and shoot
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
but thank God for that, right?
yeah,
But people are free to do what they want, and they have the liberty to do what they want. And I think this is one of the most freest nations that we see on the
yeah,
face of the earth.
yeah.
And I mean, you look around and you look at places like Libya or Iran or Syria. You look at Russia. You look at China, where there's mass there's mass crackdown from the
Right.
state. There are you're not able to be free to have whatever religion you want, or if you are
Hmm.
a certain religion in these different states, then you obviously are watched like a hawk. I know Christians, we work with organizations that share the gospel in certain
Hmm.
countries, and I can't say for sensitive reasons, but they can only have one Bible in certain countries.
Yeah,
They can,
yeah.
they can only have a certain amount of people that meet. They have to register their church with the state. If
Hmm.
they violate, they could go to jail. So, and it's not just Christianity, other religions as
Right.
well in
Hmm.
certain places. And so we are one of the freest, most democratic countries on the face of this earth. And
Yeah,
it is why the freedom and liberty is why people come here from other countries.
yeah,
They say, look, I know if I get there, I can achieve something great. I can aspire to do something more, and God bless them for it.
yeah,
My wife is an immigrant,
yeah.
and came
Right.
over here from the wonderful country of Costa
Hmm.
Rica, and she loves this country. So many people love this country,
Of course.
and I want to keep it that way. I want to keep it a great country.
Yeah, definitely. America is a great country, and other places around the world. But the freedom, Chris, I am thinking that if one is free, let's look at it, conceptual,
Hmm.
conceptualize it. If one is free, why then is is there a limit to what they do, what they can do, and if you do what the law said not to do, you will be incarcerated. I'm just playing the devil's advocate here.
Sure, sure. Sure. Well, there's no doubt that over the past several years, with Supreme Court rulings
Right.
and with certain political candidates that have pushed certain ideologies or have pushed certain bills, that the American psyche has
Yeah.
been attacked and American freedom has been attacked in certain ways.
Yeah.
Now, we're free to do what we can within the confines of the law, and it has
Right.
always been that way since the founding of the Constitution. And if we don't, if you have absolute freedom, okay,
Yeah.
then you have
Right.
anarchy.
Yeah.
So if you've got absolute freedom
Yeah,
where
you're right about that.
everybody can do, it's kind of like the old biblical maxim, in the
Yeah.
book of Judges, it says every man did what was right in his own eyes. And
Right.
as you read through this ancient book, you see that there was chaos and there was anarchy throughout this book, because every man did what was right in his own eyes. We can't have it
Yeah.
be the wild, wild west where,
Yeah.
somebody's got a gun strapped and another guy's
Yeah.
got a gun strapped and they're marching down and
Right.
shooting each
Right.
other over a jacket or over a horse or something or over a car. So there has to be some sort of rules, some sort of law in
Yeah.
order to guide the society and the culture at hand.
Yeah. You're right about that. I was the dean of discipline at a high school in Jamaica. And we have to correct the dress code. And
Yeah.
some students believe that, sir, it doesn't prevent me from learning. So why can't I wear this, whatever I want? But there has to be some sort of monitoring of the dress code, because if you allow them to wear anything, then you know what will happen, right? And we cannot
Yes, absolutely.
we cannot allow that. So you're right about that. Um, how conservatives can step up and fight the liberal agenda?
Well, I think conservatives can definitely step up and fight the liberal agenda by one, getting involved with campaigns,
Okay.
two, getting involved with the political process in general. And so that means watching the news, watching political candidates in their area. As a matter of fact, it's more important for people to be involved in the political process in your local area
Okay.
than it is, say, although they should be involved for a presidential candidate and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But if you want to really get involved, get in your local area, because your local school boards are going to decide what your kids are learning.
Right.
Your mayor and your city council are going to decide what affects your immediate life right away, and then extrapolate that out into your obviously your governor and stuff like that. That
Hmm.
is going to make the biggest impact in your life and people's lives. And so that's why it's so important for people to be involved. And I think the news is a huge way for people to step up. And obviously that's why I started a news company. But
Right.
people need to step up and understand and listen to and follow the news. Now, it doesn't have to be an everyday, you don't have to be a news
Yeah.
junkie, but you need to be aware of what's going on. I had somebody that was just looking at social media posts, and they told
Right.
me, "Oh, well, the convoy in Canada, the convoy to Ottawa, that whole thing, it's done. They've caved and everything's done and they've all gone home." Well,
Mm.
that couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah.
But what they were looking at wasn't any news station at all. What they were looking at was just some people's just media posts or social media
Yeah.
posts. And so I think it's very important for people to step up and do that in a meaning and in a relevant way.
You know, this leads me into the next question that I have, because we all are newscasters nowadays. We want to share on Facebook. We want to share on Instagram, and many times it's not the truth that the normal persons would person would share, the lay person would share, because what happened? Take for instance, a flood up in a particular region. They'll
Sure.
perhaps share something from 5 years ago and say, "Hey, this is what happened," and that's not the truth,
Sure.
right? So that leads to something that I saw on your profile, your settings about truth in the media. Is it that um, many places in the media, many platforms are just not telling the truth, be it social media or otherwise?
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of places that are not telling the truth.
Yeah.
We went through I believe it was last year, and we looked at a lot of the mainstream media sources, and
Yeah.
we actually found in the mainstream media sources that, like, our media, my media company, will not
Yeah.
publish anything. So that means we might not have stories that come out for a little while unless we can absolutely verify the facts,
Mhm.
or we can back it up substantially by other claims. And so we went through and we looked at several different media outlets, CNN and others, and we started to look at these, and we found numerous stories. Now, I don't want to say that all their stories are false,
Right.
because that
Yeah.
wouldn't be true either,
Hmm.
but we found numerous places where their stories were completely false. They were 100% false. They were
Yeah.
proven false, or they were taken to court, and later in court they redacted the story because their stories were false.
Yeah.
Now,
Mm.
I want to make a claim. I'm not saying that happens all the time. So I don't
Right.
want to make that claim that this happens all the time, but it does happen. And this gets people to say, well, what media source do you trust? Who do you trust? There was I think it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
Right.
a a group, I think it was like some college students or something, they made up some false story, and the mainstream
Uh,
media circulated it. I think some people probably remember this. And the mainstream media circulated this story, and then later on they found out this was completely
wow.
100% made up. It was totally fake. And so it started with one, and I don't remember which one it started with, but
Mhm.
say ABC or NBC or something, and it
Right.
just spiraled from there, with all of these other news outlets. So it was pretty incredible to see. And I
Yeah.
think it's important that truth comes back to the news media, you see a lot of news medias pushing a bent. And while we are a conservative news media, we let you know up front, that means that in our opinion, we are
Okay.
conservative. But
Yeah.
when we give a story and it doesn't have commentary, it is just the facts. There's no bent
Right.
whatsoever.
You
And I think
know,
that's important.
it's interesting that you say that though. I run a blog on my Instagram page, Canute Exploration. I take news from reputable news, media company, right? And I place on my Instagram page just to share the news. But basically, what you're saying is that sometimes these might not be true. And it's important to double check despite the fact that it's coming from a reputable media house because they might have gotten it from somewhere that is, just not reputable.
Absolutely. Yeah, when I have contributors submit stories, whether it's, I don't care if it's a senior contributor
Right.
or just a newbie, when they submit stories, they better have several sources to back it up.
Yeah.
And if possible, if at all possible, they better have, if they're referencing a video, I better see that video, or someone else that is in the editorial board better see that video, better see the link to that video, and it better be
Okay.
checked out before it's linked to the story, so that we can verify these facts and make sure, okay,
Yeah.
this is a legitimate thing. For instance, I talked with a person in France
Right.
a while back, when the Yellow Jackets, I think, or the Yellow
Oh yeah, I
Vests.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they had contacted us and said, we want you to run a story about what we're doing and what we're marching for.
Hmm.
Had given us some stuff, and I said, well, I need to see
Yes.
actually some video. I
Yeah.
need to talk to you. So we did a Zoom call, but making sure that there's some truth and some validity to these statements before we put them out there. I just think it's so important in this world to bring truth back to the media, but bring truth back to our culture and to our
Yeah.
society.
Wow. That's powerful. Hey Chris, the family, faith, and events, a lot of things happening around us now, right? Especially since the COVID thing, a
Yes,
lot of
sir.
changes, and it creates some other events. How does that impact? Yes, the United States, other part of the world, and our lives as well.
I think family and faith and current events, I think, are so intertwined, and they affect us and our country and our lives, and they can't be separated, because
Okay.
everybody, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian, whether you're a
Mhm.
Sikh or a Hindu or whatever you are, that faith operates in your life, and it affects how your family operates, and it affects how you see the world and the country at
Yeah.
large. And
Hmm.
so I think, and it will also affect how you process each of these current events. And so I think that, one, having a mindset that we are all brothers and sisters in this country, in the world,
Yeah.
but specifically in this country, but we are
Right.
all
Mhm.
brothers and sisters in this country,
Yeah.
and that every current event, whether it's raising the taxes or lowering the taxes, whether
Yeah.
it's mask mandates or the removal of mandates, has an effect on what we do and how we live our lives.
Yeah.
And more importantly, our faith. It is so, I read a study a while
Yeah.
back. I think it was a Barna research group. It might have been a Gallup poll or something like that,
Okay.
that talked about people that have a faith system and go to church, and it didn't specify whether it was Christian or Muslim, or
Right.
but people
Yeah.
that have a faith system and go to church are more likely to be better citizens. They're more likely to live longer and be happier. And if you have happier citizens, you
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
happier atmosphere and a happier country to live in. And so I think
Yeah.
all of these things are gravely important. And I think that's something that's being lost, especially faith, and the aspect of family in our society is being lost And it's one of the saddest things that I've seen. You know, the divorce rate being at
Yeah.
51%.
51.
And this is not to say anything bad about people that have gotten
No, that's
divorces,
all right. Yeah.
but you know, there's something special about that, about the family bond and
Yeah.
about the family. You know, I seen my mom, who was
Yeah.
raising us, a single mom, and it was hard. It was
Yeah.
hard. You know, we lived in shelters, so I know
Yeah.
what it's like. um,
Yeah.
but it was very hard for her. And you know, I want to see a country that is prospering. I want to see a country where the lives of the people are prospering and affected in a positive and in a good way.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Why not politics for you? Representative politics. Going into politics, representing the people. Why?
Well, why not for me? I've
Yeah.
never counted it out, and I've thought about it. I've thought about going into it. Um, I just not sure it's the time yet, but I
Okay.
have thought about going into politics.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know, I've got to build my company more, so I'm looking for that. but you know, I haven't counted it out. I haven't counted it out.
Right. I mean, I'm saying it to you because I think you'll be a good person to represent a constituency, and definitely you'd have my vote. Right? You
All
know.
right, thank you,
Yeah.
sir. I appreciate
Um.
that.
Right. Look. This thing about the American Constitution and the values, the American values and Constitution. Why is it important to keep that going? In the American system.
I think it's important because we are one the American values that have gotten us to where we are at are one of the longest standing and one of the best value systems, I would say. And a lot of people would say, people like the long past Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia and others, who would say, listen, this value system, at the same time that France has had, I believe, 20 constitutions, at the same time that you've seen the Soviet Union go through regime and basically dictator after dictator,
Right.
or all of these different nations go through these different political systems, the American political system and the Constitution and the values that we hold so dear have upheld all of this time. And the Constitution, when you look at the framework of the Constitution, the
Yeah.
men, you know, I'm doing a series right now, and we're going over the Federalist Papers. And when you
Hmm.
look at the Constitution, these men, they studied over 1,000 documents. It was actually about 3,000, I think
Wow.
3,500.
Yeah.
They looked at over 1,000 documents. They looked at all of these political systems, from Greece to Athens to Rome to Britain at the time, which was segregated into three basic colonies. And they began to look at all of these systems and they said, how can we do it better? Because the Articles of Confederation that they had at the time, when they were looking at making the Constitution, they said these are not sufficient enough to keep us
Yeah.
through. We don't want to go over to what Britain is. We don't want to do it that way because they're at war all the time.
Hmm.
What is a better system? What's a better constitution? And when we think about constitution, if you're talking about people, right? If you know
Right.
a person has a great constitution, he has a good character, or she has a good
Right.
character, a good framework deep down inside of her. And they said, we want a constitution that will stand the annals of time. And I think the Constitution that we have is a great Constitution. I think the values that we have stood for a long time, and we have been a bulwark of freedom in the world for generations. And I think that speaks volumes right there.
Right. Yeah, it's important. America has a great constitution, and the framework that that surrounds that constitution. It's really speak to integrating all, no matter where you are from, your ethnical background, and it's really a good constitutional framework.
Absolutely.
Uh, Tell me though, if you have to fix any one problem in the United States, what would that problem be, and how would you fix that problem?
If I had to fix
one problem
one
i-
problem
in the US,
in the US,
what would that problem be in your mind? And how do you fix that problem?
it would be uh, making the nuclear family a priority in people's life, getting the families back together, a getting the new putting the emphasis on the nuclear family and saying, listen, this is God's design, the nuclear family, and
Yeah,
making that an absolute priority. So wouldn't even be
yeah,
any of this stuff. If there was one problem that I could fix in the United States, it would be the family problem. We see
mm,
at an epic proportion, we see dads leaving their families. We see people, which I consider in many respects selfish, where they're not teaching or disciplining. They're leaving it up to the power of the state or to the teachers to teach their children. And it's not their job to teach the children. It is your job as a parent, as a father, as a mother, to pour into your kids good values, good morals, and to raise children in the way they should go. And when they are old, they shall not depart from it. And
I
so
love that.
I think that is the one single thing that I could, if I could
Yeah.
fix it, I would fix that.
Yeah, I love that because the family, then the community, nation,
Absolutely.
community, nation. And so it's critical that we get that unit, that social unit, the family,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
It's important. You're listening to Canute Exploration. I am Dr. Canute White talking to CR, Chris Rosser. Right? Love it, CR. Um, I'm going to talk about your business now. Um, what's your business? What's your organization is all about? I know you run a podcast as well. We'll get into that, but let's talk about your business. What is your business and why you get into business?
Absolutely. Yeah. My business is a news company. We obviously we do articles and whatnot, and we're just trying to bring truth back to the media. As I said before,
Yeah,
a lot of people, they don't know who they can trust or what they can trust. And we looked around and I said, somebody ought to do something. Somebody ought to, I saw so many people getting disgruntled with the news media, getting disgruntled with the media that seems more and more not to support
mhm,
the American values that have made us great.
yeah,
They seem not to support the Constitution of the United States. And so our mission is, one, to bring back truth to the media. We are fighting for truth. Two, we support freedom. We support the democratic process. We openly say we support the Constitution of the United States, and we openly support free speech. We are 100% for freedom, and we
yeah,
stand by that as a company, and as myself as the
yeah,
owner and as the CEO. And so we are basically, we're intent on making a difference in this world. And also, as a company, with every new subscriber or donation or whatever we get, we send 10% back to charity. And so, one of the things that we do, at me as a Christian, as a believer, as a man
yeah,
of faith,
yeah,
I think it's important to give back to our society and to our culture. And so, we take 10% of every dollar that comes in and we give it back to charity. As a matter of fact, we have
wow.
from now until the end of April, we have actually a fundraiser going on that every
Mm,
person that comes in, donates, or signs up, we're giving 10% to Food for the Poor to help feed the hungry and the hurting in this world. And so that's a big part of who I am. So now it's a big
yeah.
part of who the company is. So that's who we are as a company.
Yeah, I love that. I love the concept of giving back,
Absolutely.
letting somebody else be happy. As I celebrate my birthday today on my Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, I actually asked my friends to celebrate with me by going into the inner city, talking to a youth, yeah, talking to a youth,
Awesome.
encouraging a youth, give that youth a lunch money, we call it in Jamaica, a food money, a lunch money, Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just do that
Absolutely.
in celebration with me.
I,
Critical.
I tell you what, one of the greatest things that I can do is when I shut off the cameras and I
Yeah.
leave the office, I at my church I am involved. I'm actually a credentialed minister as well, and
Yeah.
every Wednesday night and on Sundays, I go and I pour into the youth and I
Yeah.
teach the youth and just try to give back and say, hey, man, it's not
Yeah.
about me.
No,
It's not
no.
even about the company,
Yeah.
but this is a place I can just be your friend and
Yeah.
we can have fun. I can pour into them, pour
Yeah.
into their lives, and hopefully make a difference. If even just for one,
Yeah.
make that difference.
That's important.
Absolutely.
And the Chris Russell show, right? This is Canute Exploration, your topic in a podcast. I'm Dr. Canute White. Chris Russell, and there is a Chris Russell show. I guess that's your podcast, right, Chris?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. Tell us about that podcast, and why did you start it?
Well, I started it because when I looked around and I saw so many things going on, and I was so just I was like, you know what? I want to talk about these things, but I want to have an avenue to talk about
Oh
these
yeah.
things in a civil manner. Because I would try to talk to people on, say, Facebook or different things like that, and it would just turn into these big arguments where people, they would get flustered and frustrated, and I would
Yeah.
say, hey, listen, we're trying to have a conversation about the issues.
Right.
And I said, and somebody said to me, well, why don't you think about starting a show, because you've got so many things to talk about. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do that. So I started the show, and I got a large reception. A lot of people started uh listening in, and I said, you know what, this is great, because then the people that want to listen, want to hear, they're going to listen, and the people
Yeah.
that don't, well, unfortunately they won't. But 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 to talk about the issues,
Yeah.
basically I want to talk about the issues. I think we need to get back to talking about the issues. One
Yeah.
of the things that has become so tragic in the US, and maybe the world at large,
Yeah.
is people live in their own little bubbles. They want themselves and nothing else. They don't want to be involved in politics. They don't want to talk about the issues. And
Mhm.
then, when things get out of hand, they wake up and go, "Whoa, what happened? What happened?
Yeah.
Wait a minute." And if you would have been listening, if you would have been talking about the issues, maybe you could have affected change
Yeah.
before it got bad. And
Each of
so,
us is a change agent. Let me put that
yes,
in.
yes, be a change agent. I 100% believe that.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris. I mean, it's important. But tell us, how can we tune into your show? Talk to us about getting in touch with your show, listening.
Absolutely. Yeah, if people want to listen, they can hear me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Right.
I got a call from Amazon, so just a month and a half ago or 2 months ago.
Yeah.
So we are on Amazon Podcast now. Pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts: Google,
Right.
Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Podcast Pocket, Breaker. Wherever people listen, they can hear it. I also do lives uh every Saturday. As of right now, we do lives, and so Saturdays at 7 on Facebook and on YouTube. Although my YouTube account was taken down and it had to be brought back up
Okay. Hmm.
for for violation
Okay.
of
We understand
talking
that. Yeah.
about election and COVID. And the funny thing is I appealed it to them
Right.
because I only talked about studies and I only talked about the legal cases. But they did not seem to care. But Section 230, Article 47 of U.S. Code gives them the
Okay.
ability to be able to take anybody off for any
Oh,
reason.
I see.
So there's not much you can do about it, but we are
It's
getting
back.
back on YouTube.
Oh, it's running again. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I love that, Chris. I love that. So we can tune in to your show and Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast, and thus Chris, the Chris Russell show.
Absolutely.
You can tune in to Chris as well as Canute Exploration. Subscribe to both channels, and wherever you watch your podcast, I am there. Chris is there, and you can listen. Chris, tell me, have you ever been to Jamaica? That's another
I
question that
haven't.
I.
I haven't. But I can tell
Why
you
is that
this.
so, Chris?
I do want to go.
Okay, cool. It's a nice place in the Caribbean to be, for vacation,
I'm
and
all about the warm
nice place
weather.
to do business as well. Let me say, the Jamaica Chambers of Commerce would like to to hear me say that. But yes, think about it.
Absolutely, I will.
All
And
right.
and I have been to Florida though. My brother lives in
Oh,
Florida,
cool. In the
and I do love
Sunshine
Florida.
State. Yes, yes, yes. Chris, I was in Bronx not too long ago, and it's so cold in Bronx. I was dying to come back, so to speak, to come back to Florida to get some of the sunshine. When I came back, I stood in the sun for a while to smoke some of those sun in.
I don't blame you. I didn't want to leave Florida when we were there. It's like, oh, please, no.
Right. Hey, Chris, what I want you to do now is to give me some contact. Yes, I have your website up here. Can you repeat that for those listening on their favorite podcast platform? Your website.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. If they want to see the website and our news company, they can go over to www.thedailybrieftdb.com. That's www.thedailybrieftdb.com. They can get a lot of great stories and news articles over there. And if they want to be a part of our email list, which I'd love for people to be a part of our email list, it's 100% free, and we email stories and news updates and breaking news alerts,
Okay.
daily, sometimes weekly. They can email us at the daily brief 100 at gmail.com. That's the daily brief 100 at gmail.com. And so we'd love for them to be a part of it. And obviously, they can find my show on, as we said, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere people listen, at The Chris Russell Show. If you just Google search it, it'll be the first thing that comes up. So
Yeah. Hey, it's so nice talking to you, Chris Russell. CR. Yeah, I love it. I love it. The Chris Russell show. My audience, as I said, can tune in to Chris Russell show, to Canute Exploration as well. It's okay, right? It's all about the message. Ensuring that people are empowered and they learn a lot. It's all about getting that done. It's about the people, not about Chris Russell show or Canute Exploration. It's about you,
absolutely.
and we want you to listen, to learn, and to be empowered. That's critical for Chris, I am sure, and for me here on Canute Exploration, your topic in the podcast. Hey, Chris, it's nice to have you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, you take care now.
All
Bye
right.
bye. So that was Chris Russell, and as I said to you, he's a very dynamic person. He's in the media business. Listen to him, right? Try to find is not only his podcast, but go on his website and view some of what Chris has to share. And I'd like to remind you that we're still in a pandemic. Do the right thing. You know the right thing. We have been hearing the right thing for the past 2.5 years now, 2 to 3 years now, let's say that, and let's get it right so that we can get back to some form of normalcy, not normal, but some form of normalcy. It was nice being here. Thank you for watching Canute Experience.